You are listening to PR Radio Station of America.
News of the administration's decision to reinstate and expand the 2020 civics test spread rapidly across immigrant communities. Families who had been preparing for months suddenly felt blindsided. The test, once seen as a manageable hurdle on the road to citizenship, was now viewed as a potential barrier. For many, this announcement transformed what was supposed to be a celebration of belonging into an uncertain and stressful challenge. For decades, the civics test had a simple formula. Applicants studied 100 possible questions, were asked 10, and needed 6 correct answers to pass. This balance was difficult yet fair, allowing those with limited English proficiency or busy work schedules to succeed if they studied consistently. Now, with 128 questions and a higher passing requirement of 12 out of 20, applicants feel as if the government has quietly moved the goalposts. Advocacy groups began fielding urgent calls. A father in Texas who had been practicing flashcards with his children asked if all their preparation was now worthless. An elderly woman in California feared she would not be able to memorize dozens of additional questions due to her age. These concerns highlight that behind the policy are human lives filled with hope and anxiety. Officials defending the decision argued it would strengthen the sense of national identity by ensuring new citizens possess a deeper understanding of history and government. They claimed this reform would guarantee loyalty and civic awareness. Yet critics insisted that the purpose of the test was never to exclude but to include, offering a gateway to integration rather than a wall of obstacles. Nonprofit organizations, community centers, and legal clinics scrambled to adjust. Study guides had to be rewritten, volunteers retrained, and classes redesigned almost overnight. For many immigrants, particularly older adults or those juggling multiple jobs, the shift felt less like encouragement to learn and more like a deliberate strategy to discourage them from even applying. The emotional impact was immediate. Families who had saved money for filing fees and prepared for naturalization ceremonies were left wondering if their dreams had been delayed or destroyed. A sense of betrayal hung in the air, as many asked why the government would change rules at the very moment they were close to achieving citizenship. Officials presented the reform as a matter of fairness. They claimed that requiring immigrants to demonstrate a more detailed knowledge of history, government, and civic principles ensured a stronger and more unified nation. Supporters of the policy argued that citizenship is sacred and should only be granted to those who are fully committed to embracing national values. Advocates countered that citizenship is not just about memorizing facts, but about lived experience, paying taxes, raising families, and contributing to communities. They insisted the new rules would not necessarily create better citizens, but would instead scare away many deserving applicants who already considered the nation their home. Local immigrant rights organizations reported a wave of confusion. Lawyers held emergency sessions to explain the changes, while community teachers extended class hours to cover additional material. Families pooled resources to buy new study books, but even then, some worried that older relatives might give up altogether rather than face the expanded test. Personal stories highlighted the divide. A grandmother who had lived in the country for decades felt humiliated by the idea that she was being asked to learn more than her American-born grandchildren. A young nurse preparing to apply said she would delay her application, fearing that if she failed under the new system, the denial would jeopardize her future. The specific content of the new questions also fueled controversy. Among the added topics were the 10th Amendment, the Federalist Papers, and contributions of figures like Alexander Hamilton and James Madison. Critics asked whether this level of academic rigor was necessary for someone seeking to demonstrate readiness for citizenship. Supporters praised the broader scope. They claimed that understanding the Federalist Papers or recalling the role of Dwight Eisenhower built a richer civic identity. Yet many immigrants pointed out that the test now resembles a university exam more than a practical evaluation of whether someone can function as an informed voter and community member. Beyond the exam, the administration introduced other measures that deepened concerns. One was an expansion of what counts as good moral character, a requirement that is already open to interpretation. Applicants now feared that even minor mistakes or online comments could be used against them during the review process. Another revived policy was the so-called neighborhood check. Investigators may now interview neighbors and coworkers to verify eligibility. For many, this evoked memories of surveillance and control in countries they had fled. Even immigrants with nothing to hide worried that gossip or misunderstandings could cost them their chance at citizenship. Immigrant advocates described the combined changes as a chilling effect. They argued that instead of building trust, the government was sowing fear, pushing longtime residents to avoid applying for benefits to which they were legally entitled. For some, the dream of citizenship now seemed further away than ever. The broader campaign to restrict legal immigration benefits was becoming increasingly evident. New memos instructed officials to scrutinize applicants' social media for so-called anti-American views. This vague standard alarmed many, since expressing frustration or even political opinions online could suddenly be seen as disqualifying. Advocates warned this would create a chilling effect on free speech. Immigrants might avoid posting, sharing, or even liking content out of fear it could be misinterpreted. In communities where people rely on online groups for support and information, the change felt like another form of surveillance. The heightened scrutiny added to the workload of already overburdened legal aid organizations. Many community centers reported waiting lists stretching for months as immigrants sought help navigating the new requirements. Some lawyers admitted they were struggling to keep up with the constant policy shifts. Immigrants who had lived in the country for decades began questioning whether the risks outweighed the benefits. Some delayed applications, fearing rejection would put them on the radar for enforcement. Others rushed to apply before the mid-October deadline, creating a surge in filings and long lines outside immigration offices. Critics said the reforms were less about protecting national security and more about erecting invisible walls. The combination of a harder test, broader moral scrutiny, and neighborhood investigations created a climate of intimidation. For immigrants who had believed in the promise of citizenship, the path now seemed deliberately obstructed. At the center of the debate lies the meaning of citizenship itself. Officials framed it as a privilege reserved only for those willing to meet higher standards. Immigrant advocates framed it as recognition for people who have already lived, worked, and contributed for years. These conflicting visions shaped the heated national conversation. Matthew Trugesser, speaking for the agency overseeing applications, said the reinstated test ensures that new citizens are fully assimilated and ready to contribute to national greatness. He described the policy as the first of many changes to come. For supporters, this was a patriotic defense of values. Opponents saw it differently. They argued the harder test would discourage applicants, particularly the elderly, those with limited English, and those from poorer backgrounds. For them, the changes symbolized exclusion rather than inclusion, closing doors to people who had already proven loyalty through years of residence and contribution. As mid-October nears, immigrant families scramble to adapt. Community centers run late-night study classes, lawyers host free workshops, and families share flashcards across kitchen tables. The sense of urgency grows daily. For many, this is not just a test of knowledge, but a test of resilience and hope. The question remains whether these changes will truly strengthen the nation or instead weaken the fabric of inclusion and trust. For immigrants at the threshold of citizenship, the new rules are not abstract policy, but life-changing obstacles. Their struggle to adapt will shape the future of communities across the country. This is the end of that story. Now tell me in the comments, what's your story? I'll read out the most interesting ones in the next video. Do not forget to hit a like button and subscribe. See you.